Большое спасибо. Я понимаю, а я говорю русский. That's why I'm going to switch to English right away. And I'm going to do it slower so everybody can understand it. So the reason, first of all, thank you very much for having me here in St. Petersburg. As a full disclosure, this is my second time that I'm here. The first time was for my honeymoon, and was already a beautiful city, and now it's even more beautiful. Really, I enjoyed spending time with you. So why do we have to go back to the basic of surgery? Why studying again anatomy? Well, first of all, we have to be aware of the area that we are working at. Because we can, as I'm going to show you, do huge disasters without surgery. Okay? Now we're talking about quality of life. If we are doing a procedure to improve the quality of life, and we have a patient staying in the hospital for 6 months, or a patient that is suing you, I'm sure you have this type of problems in this part of the world as well. If you don't have it because of the globalization, you're going to have them pretty soon. So if the patient is suing because of the pain after the surgery, and there are many reasons why it can cause like severe pain, it's that we fail completely the purpose of our surgery. And the other reason is based on what we are finding, based on our knowledge, we should be able to select the proper surgical technique for our patients. This is how we are born, okay? This is from my country, the Colosseum. Couple of thousand years ago, this is what they were seeing in Rome. This is what we see in Rome now. This is basically what we are seeing in our patients due to their aging. And basically what we are doing as surgeons, we are playing archaeology. We are trying to restore the anatomy to as close as possible to what we were provided with. This is, all of us would like to have, like, I don't know, a nice Karamazov brother type of writing. So, one book, or Karamazov is sometimes you do books, and it takes you like forever to move. At least when I was studying them, forever to go through it. But you are not, you want to do one surgery that is going to last forever. But unfortunately, our procedures are more like a trilogy or more, because we are not that good in fixing with one surgery all the problems. Why is that? Because the aging process keeps working against the patient and against our repair. This is how we are all studying anatomy. We are all studying the patient in the anatomic position, which is standing like this. Now we saw 5 beautiful procedures this morning. I just said to Dmitry, it was so beautiful to see 3 different surgeons doing exactly the same technique. Standardized procedure. We have to, there is room for improvement once you learn the basic anatomy and once you learn the basic surgical techniques. But we were, in all these 5 patients, we didn't see this type of anatomy. We didn't see this type of preparation because our patients are standing in this lithotomic position. So when the patient is in lithotomic position, also the position of the bladder, the position of the uterus and the rectum is very different. And all the repairs that we are doing needs a different tension compared to the pressure that the organs are having in a standing position. And we have to be familiar with this anatomy because we have to have this flexibility in our head when we are applying sutures, we are doing the sections and trying to position a mesh. We are dealing with a very close area. This is the anterior and the posterior perineum. And as you can see here, in the anterior perineum is the area that we are mostly gynecologists, urologists, urogynecologists, female urologists, as you want to call the pelvic floor surgeons, are familiar. But as we are moving posteriorly toward the rectum, we became less familiar with the area. And this is where the problems are starting. Just as a reminder, when we all start doing the surgery for the posterior component using massively meshes, because some huge disasters, because of the interaction between the mesh, not the tape as we saw today, but the full mesh into the rectal wall. So we should know better the anatomy in this area, as we want to address the whole dysfunction of the pelvic floor. The biggest muscle that closes the abdominal cavity is represented by the elevator ani muscle. So the elevator ani is the muscle in all 3 or 4 components, depends on the anatomy schools, that basically is connecting the anterior portion of the bony structure of the pelvis, the pubis, with the posterior part, with the sacrum and the coccyx. This is what I'm using to my residents to memorize this. So you have the pubo-coccygeal muscle, the PC muscle, the most important one, the biggest one. That's the one that when you do the physical examination of the patient, you put your finger and you ask the patient, can you squeeze this muscle? This is very important. Just seeing prolapse is not enough to evaluate the patient or to offer a solution. You have to know what is this muscle doing. Is this patient able to contract the muscle or not? As we are moving back, we have ilio, the coccygeal, and the coccygeal muscle posterior. Piriformis muscle is also very important, especially for pain, if you want to evaluate this portion. The urogenital diaphragm is representing the fulcrus where everything is attached and to which all the structures of the pelvic floor are connected to. And this is the composition of it. You have the deep transversus perineal muscle, superficial one that you basically have to know it to get to the deep one, the ischocavernosus muscles and the bulbocavernosus muscle. The deep transversus perineal muscle is very important because it's the only one that into the mid portion of its trajectory we have a tendon, like a ligament, that goes onto the urethra. That's the portion that attaches onto the mid portion of the urethra. The old anatomists used to call this mid portion of the urethra as the urethral knee. And it's the portion of the urethra when the urethra is bended. Urethra is not a linear structure, and it's not a rigid structure. That's why, personally, and that's why we had this discussion before, I don't do a Q-tip test. Because Q-tip is not doing anything else but doing an artifact. If you put a rigid structure in a curved and a flexible structure, you will have an artifact. That's why an angle of the urethra, 45, 35, 50, 90 degree angle variation, does not correlate with anything in the severity of incontinence. It does not tell you anything about the presence or absence of ISD, which stands for intrinsic sphincter deficiency. So there we have a central portion of the urethra where it's which is stabilized by the insertion of the tendon of the deep transverse perineal muscle. This is actually the most important part of the so-called uretropelvic ligament. This was the one that described rats almost 20 years ago. Just to see better the composition of this area, we have to include the obturator foramen. We are now using, since the law described this, the possibility to enter into this area, very widely this foramen. We are touching ligaments, we are touching slings inside, we are touch anchors inside, we go with the full meshes into this area. You can see here the composition of the perineal membrane, the central tendon of the perineum, which needs to be evaluated whenever you want to do a surgery, because you have to keep in mind that we are not restoring anatomy. the first purpose of our surgery is function. So something that looks good may not work as good. And in the pelvic floor, function, it's over the appearance. So this, you can see here the issue of the rami, and you can see here on the both sides the membrane that closes the obturator foramen. This is a better detail of it. Again, you can see the insertion, the part of the deep transversus perineal muscle on its more distal portion, and the relationship between the urethra, the vaginal wall, and the ammonia. Once we are doing surgery through like vaginal surgery, through a little pelvic position, we have to keep in mind what is above this structure. So we have to have a knowledge of the endopelvic portion of the muscles, ligaments, nerves, and vessels. That's very important because, again, you can create huge damages if you're not aware of what is lying above this structure that you don't see. But you have to know what is there. This is a summary of all the possible ligaments and tendons that we have in the pelvic floor. And each of these, together or separately, can be not working and be the cause of dysfunction or of anatomical problem. You can, if you see here in the anterior portion of it, we have the ligaments that are stabilizing the urethra and the bladder neck to the pubic symphysis. And we have the so-called pubourethral ligaments. Those are, I did study while I was still in Italy, the embryology of these ligaments. And what we've seen is this is the first ligaments that you can recognize in the fetus. Why is this important? You will say probably for continence. I would say probably it has nothing to do with continence mechanism. If I want to develop a system that holds and empties the reservoir, so that we have the filling phase and the emptying phase of the bladder cycle, I would first think of something that empties efficaciously the reservoir. And as a matter of fact, these ligaments are very important for the emptying mechanism. This is actually stabilizing the proximal urethra and the bladder neck so that the remaining part of the detrusor can squeeze toward this fixed portion of the bladder and the proximal urethra. That's why when we have a dysfunction in this area, for instance, because of a prolapse, we develop voiding dysfunction secondary to prolapse. As a matter of fact, again, you can have a widely open bladder neck in nulliparous patients perfectly continent. That's telling you that this part, the pubourethral ligaments and the bladder neck, play a very little role into the continence function of our patients. On the mid portion of the urethra, there is, we spoke already about the so-called pubo-urethropelvic ligament. So everything that connects the urethra to the lateral pelvic wall. That's the one that stabilizes the urethra. That's the one that we are recreating or we are restabilizing when we are putting tape underneath the mid-urethra. If we are moving towards the back portion of this cavity, you will have basically the cervix, the paracervical ring, which represent the fulcrus of everything that stays in the pelvis. This is connected posteriorly with the uterosacral ligaments, and the uterosacral ligaments. I saw there is a beautiful book translated in Russian about the integral theory out here, and the author of this integral theory is actually focusing his interest in the uterosacral ligaments, replicating these ligaments for any type of reason. Now, also for urgency incontinence and for nocturia, stating that if you stabilize this portion of the ligaments, you will improve the urgency, so the hypertonicity of the bladder and of the pelvic floor, and nocturia. This is now, again, you can see this, the ligament. See here how everything is related to the cervix of the uterus. That's why when we remove this portion, we have a higher chance of destabilizing in the future the pelvic floor. Everything is connected towards there. You can see here is the uterosacral ligaments, the paracervical link, the arcus tendinous of the fascia pelvis, which is different compared to the arcus tendinous of the levator ani. There are two different structures, and you can anatomically separate these structures. When whoever has experience into the endopelvic surgery, for instance, because you want to do a radical prostatectomy, you can identify a thickening of the endopelvic fascia. You can open this endopelvic fascia. You will see another wide structure underneath that is actually representing the insertion of the levator ani superiorly and of the obturator internal inferiorly. So that's actually the area where the muscles originate. Very important for, especially to stabilize this area and avoid the prolapse of the bladder. The endopelvic fascia is covering this thing here, and then you go anteriorly towards the pubourethral ligaments, the pubocervical fascia that we saw very beautifully prepared today. Underneath there you have the rectovaginal fascia, so-called rectovaginal fascia. This helps us in understanding the idea of the three different levels that the Lancet proposed to explain why the pelvic organs are supported and how they are supported, and how the dysfunction of this is causing a functional problem. So the three levels are the level one, where is basically you have at the level of the cervix of the uterus. The second level, which is represented by the vagina, everything that actually tends the vagina is going to provide the second level. And the third level is done by the dysfunction typically provided at the level of the urethra. Now all these things is connected, especially if you think that the big muscle of the pelvic floor, the levator ani, has no direct contact with the bladder, and even less with the urethra. This is all mediated through the vagina. So if I don't have a good support of the vagina towards the lateral pelvic wall, I would have a lack of support of the bladder, and this can happen at any part of the vagina. Means the vagina can be detached from the levator ani, and we will see a very specific, peculiar type of cystocele, which is the so-called lateral defect. You will recognize this because the vagina is going to keep having the corrugation. So if you see a prolapse, like a bladder coming out from the anterior vaginal wall, but keep the corrugation of the vagina, you will know that there are some problems into the lateral attachment. That's called the vaginal levator attachment. That's the area that is detached. And you can put your fingers or an instrument or a forceps into the lateral surface, and if you push on this, the prolapse will disappear. So once you see this, you know that this patient developed a prolapse because of a specific problem in the lateral anchoring of the vagina to the pelvic wall. On the other side, if you see a central prolapse, then I'm going to go through this a couple of times so it will be clearer to you. If you have a central prolapse, you will see a total distension of the vaginal wall. You will see the complete disappearance of the vaginal corrugation. And with the maneuver, as I said, described before, try to push back the forest of the vagina, the prolapse is going to stay there. This is an easy way to diagnose a central defect in the vagina. The reason why this lateral attachment is so important is also explained into the connection to the rectovaginal fascia and pubocervical fascia onto the lateral support. We saw this when Nikita did his apical correction with the posterior correction. So he was able to connect the apical, partially also the anterior defect, into the case that the last case that he presented, with the posterior portion. This is why, because he was able to connect or restore this portion of the vaginal. The dome of the vagina is in this area, so pulling in this portion here and putting sutures through here and through here, you are able to address the anterior portion, the apical portion, and the posterior portion of the vaginal support. Again, same view from the lithotomy position. Once you are operating here, you have to know that through here and going laterally, you will be exposing the fusion of the pubocervical with the rectovaginal fascia. This is the endopelvic view. We typically don't see this type of view when you are dealing with the prolapse, because usually, typically the uterus is not there, and very often the lack of the uterus is the reason for the prolapse in these patients. But you can see here the relationship between the endopelvic fascia, the arcus tendinous of the endopelvic fascia, and underneath this, the arcus tendinous of levator anal, which is the real tendinous arch. That's the one that you can put sutures, you can put anchors, you can put mesh through. That's the one that is going to offer a good stabilization of the structures. And again, we put this with the organs, endopelvic organs, the rectum posteriorly, the vagina between, nothing directly, everything is mediated through the anterior vaginal wall to offer support of the bladder and of the urethra. If we add to this a couple of vessels and nerves, we can see why, and this is why I asked my first question when I was trying to provocate Dimitri to be more talkative during his surgery, is how you should position the legs. Because if you abduct more or less the legs in the extended lithotomy position, you will change the distance between especially the external iliac vessels and the trajectory of your needles once you are entering blindly into the retropubic space. And again, the vessels are not a big deal, because the vessels contain a fantastic biomarker, which is called blood. Once you see blood coming out, you know that you have a problem. Once you know that you have a problem, you can fix the problem. The real problems entering into this space blindly is represented by two other structures. One is the bowel, and the second one are the nerves. You can see a nerve damage during the surgery, and you can see a bowel damage immediately during the surgery. Just as an example, the first 5 deaths in the very first year that the TVT was launched in the United States were all secondary to non-diagnosed bowel perforation. So in the patient after the TVT, especially in the country where I'm practicing medicine now, where we send the patient home right after the procedure, any incontinence procedure, go home like a few hours after surgery. If the patient appears sick, sicker than what you expect for this surgery, if this patient has a low-grade fever, if this patient start complaining about some abdominal pain, your first thing you have to think about a bowel perforation. And you should do a laparoscopy to rule this out. There's no other efficient method to do this, because you can actually treat also this complication laparoscopically. When we are entering blindly into this portion of the body, close to the ischial spine, you can create a huge problem. Such a problem that this patient is going to remember you for the rest of her life. And this is because you can, if you enter with a mesh, with a stitch, into the pudendal nerve, you will be the reason for a horrible pudendal neuropathy. So Dimitri was mentioning this. If you have a patient that develops an unusually high level of pain right after any surgery close to the sacrospinal ligament, go back right away and undo what you just did. Remove the sling, remove the stitch that you put. Because otherwise, this pain is going to become a chronic neuropathic pain. And also a late removal of the sling or of the stitch is not going to solve the problem. The pain is going to persist despite the presence of your foreign body material that you put into the body. There's another distinction that you have to keep in mind when you see a patient with a prolapse. I'm bringing all these facts so that you can actually see from the physical exam, you can remember the anatomy so that you know what to plan and how to fix this. This is the distinction between detachment and distension. The vaginal wall can be completely detached from its support or can be distended by the content of the pelvic floor. So here we have in detachment an intact vaginal fibromuscular envelope. That's the one that we saw so beautifully prepared after the hydrogen distension, with a complete separation from the supporting structures. This is why, for instance, when we saw these enteroseals, or we saw a rectocele, it was so easy to, after hydrogen distension, just to push back with a little bit of a pressure. If you are not able to do so, means that this patient has not only the detachment, but a combination of detachment with distension. And you can have different degrees of this manifestation. This is what happened with the detachment. This is a normal wall. When you lose the vaginal wall integrity, you have a herniation of it, and you have a distension with the wall inside, and you have the enterocele. And this is how it looks like. This is the vaginal wall detachment. There's nothing there. You can actually fixate this directly to the sacrum, the promontory of the sacrum, to the sacrospinal ligaments. You can do basically anything you want here. But it's very different when this area is completely occupied by the content of the, in this case, abdominal cavity. You can do the same thing in this area because you have to address the problem with the bowel here, or with the bladder if it is more in the anterior, or with the rectum if it is more posterior. And this is a combination of the two. Now, we are dealing with obturator foramen, so we have to be familiar also with the anatomy of the thigh. Why? Not only because we are entering into this area, so you have to know what you can damage there, but also because if something goes wrong, you have to be able to fix your problem. You have to be able to go back there and remove what you placed there. Let's say that the patient comes with a partial infection of your tape that you placed, or patient comes with a severe pain that is located somewhere in the thigh. You have to be able to go there, dissect the area, know where you are, so that you can fix the problem for the functional surgery that you offer to this patient. Remember, we are doing quality of life surgery. If you cannot address quality of life, if you cannot address your own complication, you shouldn't be doing this type of surgery. And again, the risks of in theory, very minor procedure like a TOT or a TVT or any tape placed underneath the urethra are so big that you should be very aware of the anatomy that you're using. So I'm going to present you the anatomy from inside toward outside. So we have the obturator internal muscle. That's the one that we are actually preparing, sometimes dissecting from inside. This is when Dimitri in the second case, when he did you did the TOT, right? In the second case. Third case, sorry. This was before my second colleague, so that's why I was confused. You have two ways of entering there. You can go with your scissors to the level of the muscle, or you can go with your scissors into the muscle and prepare it more. Typically, you shouldn't be entering into this structure because you are going to weaken the support of your tape if you're doing a single incision sling. Single incision sling relies onto the attachment only onto the obturator internal muscle. Now, if you don't know this, you may have some failures of your technique, but it's not due to the poor design of the tape. It's due to your poor technique, or even worse, of your poor knowledge of anatomy. We have getting out the abductor longus muscle, and this is a very nice structure, only because of the tendon that attaches to the infero-medial portion of the obturator canal. Why is this so important? Because that's even in the most obese patients, you don't have such a level of obesity as we have in the United States. I don't know if you're familiar with Botero. Botero is an Colombian artist who makes all these huge obese women, the one that is faster to go above her rather than around her because of the obesity. So even in these patients, you can feel the insertion of these tendons. This guides you very nicely towards where you should insert your needles, your tape, whatever you're doing. Dimitri brought a very interesting point. Why some of these patients develop pain, thigh pain, after transobturator surgery. One of the reasons is represented by the insertion of the tendon. If you put a foreign body in a tendon, and this patient is very sporty, is very active, for instance, play tennis, does, I don't know, horseback riding, ballet, whatever, this patient is going to remember you each time she moves because she's going to pull onto the tape that you inserted, contracting this muscle. There's another reason, and that's the reason why, for instance, I prefer an outside-in approach, is because not only you have less chance to go into the tendon, but also you are further away from the dorsal nerve of the clitoris. There's a beautiful Swiss study showing you that if you're doing an inside-out approach, you are almost a couple centimeters closer to the dorsal nerve of the clitoris. Remember, there are two dorsal nerves. This is the thing that I'm preparing typically whenever I'm doing, for instance, gender conformation surgery. When we're doing a phalloplasty, I'm preparing the dorsal nerve of the clitoris to attach nerves from the sensory nerves from the forearm, so that this phallus can feel something. If you know the anatomy, you can actually restore the function. In this case, we are restoring sensory portion, attaching it to different part of the body in the field. We have the abductor brevis muscle underneath there, the gracilis muscle, the obturator external, and this is covered by the abductor magnus muscle. You have to know this anatomy if you want to dig something from here and remove because of the pain. Infection is not usually the big of a deal. There is the bacteria doing your dissection. Usually, you just find a little bit of a mesh, you pull, and because of the infection, because of the bacteria that are doing the dissection for you, you'll be able actually to pull everything out. But if the pain is the reason, it's a very difficult dissection. One of my tricks that I'm using whenever I have to remove something from the thigh, I'm using ultrasound. And you can go with a very small focus dissection, identify the mesh, and it's very easy to see a mesh within the muscle, and remove that portion. Now we all studied obturator anatomy. These are our slides when I was actually still, I was just a young attending. So this is the obturator membrane. As you can see here, we are entering into the inferior middle portion of the obturator foramen, because in the superior lateral portion, the nerves, obturator nerves and vessels are leaving the abdominal cavity. So if you want to avoid this area, you can stay in a very safe area of the obturator membrane, which is right here, obturator foramen, which is right here. You can go safely there. You shouldn't be having any big problems because the motor and sensory part of the nerve is somewhere else. We saw this already, the relationship with the iliac vessels and the obturator artery leaving here, obturator neurovascular bundle leaving the area. You see it's in the superior lateral. Once you're in the inferior and medial, you're far away from the area. Another thing, if you're doing an outside-in approach, your risks of being into the endopelvic space are very low, because you are staying into the extra pelvic portion. So the risks of injury, major vessels or nerves, is very low. But you can injure everything. As I used to say with my residents, just give you a pair of scissors and a forceps, you can do any damage that is imaginable in the area. And then you have to fix this. Now, there are some vascular anomalies in this area, causing some smaller disasters, but still disasters. I remember there is a general surgeon in Germany, Dr. Petri, who is doing all the complications. He just does complications of our surgery. So he shows in one of the meetings, like shocking everybody, a huge defect of the skin covering the whole thigh, the proximal portion of the thigh, because whoever placed a transobturated sling in this area enter into the abnormal vessel that crosses the obturator foramen in approximately 20% of the cases. So he was, this person was lucky enough to go into this abnormal vessel that crosses the obturator foramen, and he or she misrecognized the problem. You say, oh, that's nothing, just some oozing. Just suture this, put a pack in, and go home. Patient was sent home, developed a huge hematoma. This huge hematoma was, that's nothing, you just put some ice on it, you'll be fine. This huge hematoma got infected. And this lady ended with a huge defect, missing basically the skin covering the whole pubis and the proximal thigh. If you're doing quality of life surgery, this is a big failure. And if you're practicing medicine where the lawyers are very smart and aggressive, it's a big damage for your belongings. So this is again another area of danger represented by Alcock's canal, where the pudendal nerve is exiting from the cavity, from the abdominal cavity. This again showing you how important is knowing the anatomy around the ischial spine. You can see the perineal branches of different nerves. The inferior rectal nerve, the cutaneous nerve, perineal nerve. These all branches can be actually giving you the sensation, the sensitivity of the brain. And this is a detail of the obturator membrane and the area where the obturator neurovascular bundle exiting from the perineal cavity. And this is seen from below, from posterior. This is the area why this ligament is actually a lot of surgeons who are starting surgery into the pelvis are afraid of this ligament, are afraid to place sutures or manipulate this ligament because of the pudendal vessels in that area. As close as you're staying to the ischial spine, which is very easy to palpate blindly into the pelvis, the higher the risk of damaging this. You have to be you have to know that should be a distance between the ischial spine and the sutures, tapes, meshes, anchors that you want to place into this ligament. You have to stay at least a couple of centimeters medial to that. And you can feel, you don't have to measure this. I agree with Dmitry, the numbers are just numbers. You have to think about the trajectory of your instrument. But if you have a finger there, and you stay a finger breadth or a couple of finger breadths medial to that, you are in a safe area. Ischial spine is like the polar star for the sailors before the GPS. It's like our GPS where we get lost into the pelvic floor. And as you've seen today, all three of the surgeons were using their finger to identify the ligament. They were looking for the ligament. It's very difficult to find the ligament right away. I've been practicing urology for a few months. I just finished my residency a couple of months ago. No, just kidding, I wish. But the only thing, I was never able to find the ischial spine, the sacrospinal ligament right away. But I'm always able to find the ischial spine. And then if you move from the ischial spine out, you will feel something that is strong. It's the strongest ligament that we have into the pelvic floor, into the pelvis, and it's actually the sacrospinal ligament. Go to the spine, it's a fixed point, everybody has it. You can feel it with your finger, and then move from the spine medially, and you will identify the ligament. If you get lost into the pelvic surgery because there is a bleeding, you don't recognize the anatomy, maybe because somebody else started the case, and then you get called because there were some problems. What I'm doing, I'm trying to find this spine, this portion of the bone that is going to fit easily in any patient, and then from there you can identify it, and you can orient yourself. You know where the bowel is from here, you know where the rectum is, and then you can identify everything else, all the possible areas that you have to address in the surgery. Again, why is this ligament so important? Because it stabilizes the most important portion of the pelvis, which is represented by the cervix, the uterine cervix. And you can see here, actually, you have at the level of the spine, you have the insertion of the arcus tendinous of the levator ani. You have the levator ani in the pubococcygeal muscle portion. It actually originates from there. You have the coccygeal muscle, which is there. And you have these big vessels and nerves that are exiting from the pelvic cavity, going towards the perineum, exactly at that point. The closest you're staying to that ischial spine, the higher is the chance of damaging the vessels and the nerves are. Again, who cares about the vessels? You're going to recognize that you did the damage there, and you can actually fix this. Don't go surgically there. Do involve your radiology friends. He can fix this problem much faster and in a refiner way that you can do with your surgery. But if you cause a nerve damage, you will not recognize. So if the patient wakes up and complains of a horrible pain into the perirectal area or into the thigh, go back right away and release the suture that you placed there. This is a fixed cadaver section you can see here, where the muscles are converging towards the ischial spine and the nerves exiting at that level. This again, same view from inside. This is another interesting nerve, which is the levator ani nerve. Why is this interesting? Because if this is crossing the muscle, the levator ani muscle. If you place blindly sutures in this area, for instance, because you want to do, I don't know, you want to do a posterior repair, and you want to reinforce this, put muscle to muscle, so from one side to the other, you have the risk of damaging this nerve. And this is a motor nerve, it's not a sensory nerve. This nerve, this damage of this nerve can explain why, for instance, after a posterior repair, you can cause a cystocele recurrence into this patient. De novo cystocele after a posterior repair surgery. Because you damage the nerve, you denervated the muscle, which is a motor nerve, and you're going to have presence of the cystocele. This is just a repetition, and you can see here the arcus tendinis or the levator ani, obturator internal, and levator ani muscle attaches to the urethra, and both sacrospinous ligaments and arcus tendinis goes towards the ischial spine. If you get lost in the pelvic surgery, do find the ischial spine. You will know exactly where you are. I said before that the uterosacral ligaments are very trendy nowadays in functional urology because, again, Papa Petros is claiming that ligating these ligaments, you can fix all kind of different problems. Urgency, nocturia, enuresis. We still have to confirm this. I personally do not believe in this theory because you cannot explain with just ligating these ligaments how you can fix this problem. And if you look carefully in how he is, what he's calling nocturia, you will see that he is kind of misinterpreting the problem of nocturia. Nocturia is such a broad phenomenon that you cannot explain that you can fix with one single procedure all the problems that nocturia can represent. This is just, I'm going towards the end, and I hope you are still with me, that you're not too bored with this anatomy talk. So this is what we are doing during the surgery. We're doing the vaginal dissection. You have to try to visualize the organs and the structures that are there or they're not there during the physical examination or during your surgery. So that you can do a better repair. Where is the urethra? Where is the bladder neck? Where is the bladder into this area? Where is the arcus tendineus? Why is this patient having the prolapse? Why are we operating this patient? What was the reason for the prolapse in this patient? Where are the danger areas? Where are the nerves, the arteries that we want to avoid? Where is the ischial spine? Where's going to be the triangle of this patient while they're doing surgery? Whoever does this surgery needs to have this knowledge so that we can do a better job for our patients. This is a typical, the apical compartment, the levator ani in this area, the coccygeal muscle posteriorly, the sacrospinal ligament towards the ischial spine, the inferior gluteal artery, that's the one that you may perforate it while you are doing this, the posterior sling, as we saw, that how our colleagues were fixing the apical prolapse. This was actually the reason why some of these patients develop hematoma in that area. And a hematoma can lead to an infection. And an infection with a mesh close to the rectum can represent a potential problem. Uterosacral ligament of the ureters, you know this. This is, for instance, when you have an enterocele, you have to be very careful where you dissect there because you can put your sutures, you can cut with your knife, the bowel, and if this happens, then it becomes a big mess. You cannot fix the problem, you cannot place anymore the tape there. You have to fix first the bowel. And you have to identify, and I'll show you beautiful. I'm very envious of the physical exam slides that were shown this morning when you see this beautiful bowel movement observing the distended vagina. So it tells you a lot about distension, detachment, what went wrong in the patient so that she developed prolapse. You have to be familiar with which portion of the vagina is not working any longer so that you can fix it selectively eventually. Is this a central defect? Is this a lateral defect? Is a proximal or a distal defect? Or all of them together? So that you can select the proper surgery, the proper technique for to operate to these patients. You have to be familiar also with the posterior components so that you can understand better what is bothering to this patient. You have to know that where is the perineal body, because you may have to reconstruct this. And you have to know how to do it and what anatomical structures are around this, so that you can do a better function of the surgery. Few words onto the vaginal wall anatomy. Nobody is teaching you how to do a good distension, because we often forget the composition of the vaginal wall. And this is very important, because if you're using a mesh, or if you're not using a mesh, your dissection should be different. If you're using a mesh, you have to have the full thickness of the vaginal wall before placing a mesh. If you don't do this, if you implant the mesh somewhere in this layer here, and you see then the mesh few days after the surgery, you cannot blame the composition of the mesh for this problem. It's your technique that was wrong. It's impossible to have an erosion few days after the surgery. This is not an erosion. This is an exposure because of your technique, because you implanted the mesh somewhere within the bladder, the vaginal wall. So those are the two layers. If you're doing the full thickness, you have to have everything. Otherwise, you have a split thickness. Otherwise, if you're using a mesh, you have a higher chance of inserting your mesh somewhere within the vaginal wall. You have to see to see this thickness of the vagina when you do the distension, when you do the dissection, and if you're placing it. And you can obtain this with a proper vaginal distension. If you do, you have to go deep enough within the vaginal wall that when you inject the saline, or when you inject saline with some adrenaline there, you shouldn't be seeing any discoloration of the vaginal wall. If your vagina becomes white after you're doing the kind of distension, you are too superficial. You are at risk to do a split thickness dissection of the vagina. And we saw this beautifully when Dimitri injected the vaginal wall, then he cut through there, and then the fluid came out. That's a full thickness dissection of the vaginal wall. We have to know our anatomy so that we improve and reduce the risks of complication of this surgery. We cannot start doing this surgery in the pelvis if we are not familiar with the possible risks and if we don't know how to fix our complications. Thank you. Any questions from anatomy? No. Yeah. Any questions? No. Are you still with me? So we'll go exercise for now. Stand up and breathe a little bit. Everybody stand up. Come on. Stand up. Yeah, good. Everybody, come on. We have to give a little bit of air to the translators. They're doing a good job. How are you ladies doing there? All good? Good. They're surviving. That's good. So, there, this is the second talk. It's a little bit less complicated than the anatomy. I understand that if you're not doing research in that area, you may find boring the anatomy. But trust me, once you know this, your surgery is going to be much, much better. So there is a reason for studying anatomy. So let's talk about the repairs that we are doing in, for the product surgery or functional surgery using a mesh, using a vaginal approach. So this is the talk is called vaginal mesh repair. This is not working anymore. I have the problem. So this is, the subtitle of this presentation is what should we know before deciding to use a mesh in the vagina? Or let's broaden this, and what should we know before doing any vaginal surgery? Okay? So first of all, we should set our goals for the surgery. Keep in mind again, we are doing functional surgery, quality of life surgery, so our goal should be oriented towards the function, towards restoring function and eventually the anatomy of these patients. So restore normal anatomy and function with a minimal invasive approach that is repeatable, standardized procedure. Again, we saw 3 different surgeons doing the same procedure in exactly the same way. You may agree, you may disagree with this, but it was done in a standardized fashion, which is the only way to look critically at your results. If you're changing your procedure every 50 cases, you're doing something wrong all these 50 times that you're doing it. It needs to be accommodating the most patient's anatomy. If you are starting saying that, oh, but this patient was so different compared to the other patient, so I have to fix, adapt it to tailor it to that patient, means that you are missing some essential points of this. Yes, we are all tailoring the anatomy, the surgery to the patients, but the base of the surgery that we're doing should be always the same. No tension on vaginal walls, or no or minimal trimming of the vaginal wall. If you have to trim the vaginal wall to fix the prolapse, you are cheating as a surgeon, and you're cheating the patient. Because you're going to just postpone the same problem. The patient's going to have the same problem a few months later or a year later. Because the vaginal wall is not a good fix, it's not a good support for everything that is that lays on it. The bladder, the bowel, the rectum, or the domes with the uterus. It needs to alleviate the symptoms, needs to long last, it needs to keep also the sexual function. We especially we urologists, are very machoist. We are all thinking about the male sexuality, and we think like tons of money, spend a lot of like billions of rubles to fix this problem, pills, prostheses, and we never ask, how often do we ask the patient if she is sexually active? Or how is her sexuality, how does sexuality change because of the prolapse, or even worse, because of our surgery? Age is not a good criteria to say that this patient shouldn't be having any sexual activity. And we shouldn't be the one who are judging this. We should ask our patient. I remember I had, I learned this through my career, that, so asking the patient if they are sexually active, and there is sexuality, female sexuality in the 60s or 70s. They are sexually active, the patient. Even in any country, you just have to, maybe they are not, they're ashamed to share this with you, but they have these activities, and they should have these activities. I remember I did an urethroplasty on this female, and I said to her, please, no sex for at least a month. She looked at me and she said, doctor, why? I said, well, we don't want to jeopardize my beautiful surgery that I did. And she said, really, like very innocently, doctor, if one line is closed, why do I have to shut the whole amusement park? So sexuality can be multi-component. But do discuss this with your patient. Pay attention to these details because they're going to appreciate it. Why should we as a urologist should be doing this type of surgery? And I don't want to be like a partisan because I'm a urologist, so we should be doing all this. I think that the surgeon who should deal with pelvic dysfunction is any surgeon that is familiar with the problems, so with the pathology, anatomy, and surgery in the pelvic floor area. Doesn't matter what type of training you have. There are a lot of our colleagues urologists that are clueless about the vagina. And there are a lot of gynecologists they are clueless about what is right above the vaginal wall. Why should we know this? Because this is an old slide from 2000. The biggest problem in the permanent solution of pelvic prolapse was represented by the bladder. And this is still the case. We didn't find a permanent solution on the long term to fix the bladder prolapse. Up to 40% failure rate using the native tissue. 30% were of reoperation was because of the prolapse reoperation. 70% in this at 10 years, they required an additional surgery for prolapse that was not fixed. If you're doing a mesh, you can see here that there is a clear advantage towards the recurrence of the prolapse for any segment that you are considering. And I'm going to cover only the anterior and the apical portion of the vagina. So I'm not going to talk specifically about the rectocele, which is, in my mind, very often just a cosmetic surgery. Rarely, the posterior prolapse is have a functional problem. Rarely, obstructive defecation is secondary to rectocele. So that's cosmetic surgery, and as such, should be discussed with the patient if she wants to have it or not. But if you're using just a suture and use the patient's tissue, you have a higher chance of recurrence at 1 year, or even higher chance at 5 or 10 years compared to using a mesh. What are the possible reasons for the failure in this surgery? It could be anatomy, can be tissue factors. This is probably why some of these patients develop a prolapse without giving childbirth at a younger age, having other problems with their collagen. It can be environmental factors. Heavy smokers can have a higher chance of recurrence of a prolapse than the patients that are not smokers. How often are we investigating this when we are talking with the patient and advising them or her or him to stop smoking? I don't think that we're doing this a good job with this. Surgical factors could be our technique, because, for instance, we didn't before my talk know that you should do a full thickness dissection of the vagina whenever you want to use a mesh. Healing and scarring does not replace any tensile strength. So you cannot use a lot of sutures, tensioning the vaginal wall, pretend that this is going to fix permanently the problem. Let's look at some anatomy factors from the patient. There are studies, this is from Gopal Badlani's study, showing that some of the patients that have a prolapse, they have some specific changes in their enzymes that degrade the collagen and the elastin into the vaginal wall. So if you use an already weak tissue to fix a problem, how on earth can you think that this fix is going to last for 10, 15 years without reoccurring? If this patient is self-degrading the tissue that you want to use to repair, this is not going to last. And it's one of the stream of investigation, academic thinking, is why don't we try to monitorize the function of these enzymes, elastinase, collagenase, and see if these patients, for instance, we can use as a biomarker that are patients that are going to fail your primary repair. So patients that should be using, where you should be using a mesh to reinforce the repair. We're still far away from there, unfortunately. This is just some of the examples. For instance, at the level of the ligament as well. A patient with the prolapse, you see, everything here is replaced by a bad scar. The scar is not doing the job. It's not supporting enough the structure that we have. Huge problem. It's so predominant that this is one of the major dysfunction of the pelvic medicine in our patients after the age of 65. We still don't have, we are getting there, but we still don't have a permanent solution that will apply to all our patients. And we are actually spending a lot of money, this is in dollars, to fix this problem, or to fix the complications of our fix. So which is kind of horrible. So we are spending more money on fixing our complications than on the problem that the patient has. This is how we are doing with our current surgical procedure. 40% we saw this reintervention for failure within the first 2 years. 60% recurrence at the same site. Now, would you buy a car if I would be like to sell you one of the most beautiful cars in the world, like a nice the Ferrari, and I say, this is a beautiful car, red, performing, but I have 60% of chance that this car is not going to work in 3 years. Would you buy this car? I'd probably be out of job underneath some of your bridges here in St. Petersburg, because I would not have money out of my work. This is what we are offering to our patients. Think about this when you are, next time you're seeing a patient with the products and you're trying to advise for the best solution to improve the quality of life of this patient. Let's look at what we are doing, what we are offering to our patients. What materials we are using, what technique we are adapting, and in whom are we using this type of procedures. We all know about this. We all know that we should use something that is not going to harm the patient, that is not carcinogenic. We all know, but the lawyers, now also the lawyers know. And we spent tons of money in studies showing that using polypropylene, you cannot cause cancer in the patient. Why? This was because one single patient in the US developed cancer after the vaginal mesh surgery, and she sued the gynecologist who implanted, actually the lawyer sued the gynecologist who implanted that, stating that the patient developed cancer because of the mesh, because of the polypropylene. It took like years of research to prove that this was not the case. That the polypropylene, the vaginal mesh are safe. Still at this AUA, a few weeks ago in Boston, we had a talks and papers presented showing that there is no correlation between polypropylene and cancer. But you can cause other problems with this. You have to know also what type of, you have to become like a textile engineer. When somebody is coming, especially with the cheap meshes, or even with the expensive one, they come there, doctor, you have to use this one, this is the best one. You have to ask, what are the characteristics of this mesh? How stiff this mesh is? How are the nuts put together? What is the distance in the pores that you are implanting? Not all the meshes are together. Actually, there's no single mesh equal to the other one. They're all different. This is if it is very stiff, the results are poor. If it is very elastic, the results are poor. There's a lot of research going on there to have a good quality of mesh. This is the AMIT classifications. So we know that whenever we are implanting something into this patient, we have to have a type 1 type of mesh. Type 1, macroporous and monofilament. We've learned this on our patients, unfortunately. And this is the inventor of the integral, one of the two guys that invented the integral theory. He was using, when he started thoughts with the other one, he was using multi-filament, causing huge problems in these patients with infections, erosions, because of the poor quality of the material that they are using. So now you know that this needs to be big holes and only one type of filament together to avoid the complications. And those are not the holes that we are talking about. The holes that we are talking about are into these areas, where the knots are. This is not really a macro porous material. This is not the big pore. This is not the problem here. The problem is here, where this is lying. The problem is here, when you have these contacts. This is where the macrophages cannot go through and clear the mesh from the bacteria after you implant it. And vagina is all but a sterile aseptical space of the body. Again, a detail of don't get fooled by these big holes. Check the details of where the macroporosity is. Check also the density of the material that you are using. They are not all the same. You have to read the small printing when they are giving you a mesh. You have to be, don't get just blind adapting because the red, I don't know how it's working here in this country. Probably have the same. You have a rat coming there and say, ah, doctor, this is the best material. Use this, I'm going to take you out for a dinner. Read in the finite what you are going to implant into your patient. Because this is going to make a big difference. We also know that you can use other materials, non-synthetic materials. You can use patient's material. Not a very good option because you cause problems in the area where you're harvesting this material. But you can use patient's fascia to replace fascia that is not working. You can use xenografts, so patient material from other creature that sounds a very interesting idea. You have a biologic material which is friendly for your tissue, but unfortunately this gets degraded. I was a co-author of the first study using porcine skin as a reinforcement of the repair, of the facial repair in cystocele. Great results, so much better the first year. Good results, a little bit better the second year. No difference 5 years after. Why? Because this all gets reabsorbed. So if we are using an implant, this should be permanent. Biological implants are not working. If you go to a smaller segment, if you want to do just repair the urethra, for instance, to use a sling, even in the first year, your failure rate is going to be almost 100% because that portion is going to get dissolved and you're not going to have a good support of the mid urethra. But this is a Dutch study published now many years ago. So not a good idea to use a biological material for the cystocele, a horrible idea to use it for your incontinence surgery. That's why we have the problems. We cannot sterilize the vagina. Vagina is not a sterile place. It's really hard to create a real fascial layer. It's really difficult to access the real attachments if you're not familiar with the area. And it's very complex anatomy. And this is why you may have some failures in fixing and having a permanent fix for the prolapse and for the sexual function. Those are some examples of where we can attach this and what can go wrong so that the patient has a recurrence of the prolapse. And this is another problem, what can go wrong with this surgery. And this is why we had a so-called warning from the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, that came out about 7 years ago, saying that if you want to use a mesh, you should discuss all the possible complications with your patient. Okay? Why do you guys have to know about FDA? FDA does not mean anything to you. You have to know this, first of all, because the patients are traveling. I personally operated a lot of Russian patients that are spending few of their time in US, and then they come back home, and then go back there, so they are traveling. You may see a patient that comes to your emergency room for a procedure that was done somewhere else. So you have to be familiar with what can be done there. And the second one, there is a lot of industry that disappeared because of this FDA warning. I remember one of the biggest stands at the AUA meeting years ago was the gynecare stand. It was like a whole block of exhibits. Now, gynecare, so 2 years ago, gynecare had only small little paper. And this year was completely absent. Why? Because of this, because they're out of business in the mesh market. Mesh art. The developed, because of the mesh, a special branch of surgery. So now we have mesh complication surgeons. I don't know if, how the medicine is practicing here. If you have so business-oriented doctors, probably yes, but not at the same amount as we have in the US. So these two guys, they were smart to say, I know the area, I can fix the problems, I'm gonna take care of all the complications. So send it to me. So I'm gonna become the mesh complication surgeons. And we have if you cannot sleep at night and you are in US, you turn on the TV, if you, like a couple of years ago, you will be hearing like every half an hour, have you had the mesh implanted in you? Give us a call. You may be entitled to compensation. Now they changed this, they switched to robotic surgery. Have you ever had a robotic procedure done on you? Give us a call. We're going to see your doctor. You're not going to make money. Me, lawyer, I'm going to take all the majority of the money. This is how this massive sue are working in the US. What have you learned from this, all these products? First of all, there was not a recall. There was never any recall of the meshes that we are using. And I still see patients that I operated. I moved to the US, to Chicago 9 years ago. I operated patients there. They're coming back saying, oh doctor, I heard that there was a recall of a mesh. Can you explant the thing that you placed in me? But then I said, how are you doing, man? Oh, I'm doing fine. You have a bird coming there. No, I'm all good. But I heard that there was a recall, so I want to be sure, can you remove it? And then you spend like hours with these patients trying to convince them and explain them that there was never a recall. There was just a public notification that you have to discuss all the possible complications with your patients. And this is specifically for the vaginal mesh. It's so confusing that all the biggest organizations that are dealing with specialties like AUA, OX, SUFU, they all had to write specifically to the FDA and come out with statements saying that, first of all, the mesh has not been recalled, and the second, that tapes and meshes are different. Even FDA came out saying that tapes are a completely different ball game, so you don't have to talk about this when you're talking about vaginal mesh surgery. MOD database is a database that the urologist, any doctor, can use to self-report complications. So it's largely underrepresented. They're not all the complications that we have there, because how often do you call anybody stating that you're proudly announcing your complication? We don't like this. We all want to be like Superman, heroes. We don't have complications. Well, we have this anonymous database where it's interesting to see. And you can see here that who is actually using this, look at the lawyers are using the MOD database and reporting MOD database almost as often as the physicians, which is very interesting. So these complications are probably exaggerated, used for other purposes that is not the real medicine. This is, I already told you about this. There were like several updates on this and what the complications are, and so that you have to discuss with the patient. But we know that there were like thousands of patients operated with the sling, with the meshes, that are doing fantastically. The patients that have lower recurrence rate than with the previous surgery that we were doing to these patients. Just think about the incontinence. We never had anything as efficacious as a sling to address female stress incontinence. We all went to the slings because of the side effects and complications of the previous surgery. Just think about Barsh bundle suspension, Marshall truncated operations. These patients had horrible complications. They were obstructive because we were not able to, we're still not able to, with that type of surgery, to address the proper tension that we are applying under the intermediate region. So in summary, to use the mesh or not to use the mesh depends on the specific type of patient that you are addressing. The truth is somewhere in the middle. you have to consider this type of facts when you are trying to treat these patients. You will have complications if you're using a mesh or if you're not using a mesh. You just have to know these possible complications, discuss them with your patient so that you can address them. They are going to happen. If you're using a mesh, you will have more complications than if you're not using anything. But if you're not using anything, you're going to have more recurrence rate. So discuss this with your patient. Be truthful with them when you're exposing all these things so that the patient can decide what she wants to have. The patient that knows about the possible complication is the patient that you are talking with them are not going to be as angry as the patient that when you're trying to minimize. I just saw a patient operated in Europe. She had an incontinence, probably urgent incontinence, treated with a tape. She was keep having the same incontinence. What was the fix for this patient? Another tape. The patient went back to this, the urologist and said, "Doctor, I am doing worse than I was before." Why? The answer, I was astonished by the answer of this scholar. He said, "Why do you want to know too much?" I said, "Doctor, but this is my problem. I have to know why I'm having this problem." And the answer is, you are not only you want to know too much, but you're also disrespectful toward me. And she threw the patient out of the office. Those are the patients they should sue a physician that behaves like this. You have to talk to the patient. Don't minimize their problems. Listen to them and try to find a proper solution with them. Let's see the last Cochrane review of comparing mesh versus not mesh. If the patient does not want to have the mesh, don't do a mesh. Offer what the patient wants to have. But discuss this. What do we know using polypropylene mesh versus native tissue or colporafil? Colporafil is not a good fix on the long term. It's not going to do anything. And we know this. The risk of recurrence is significantly higher if you're just doing a colporafil. If you're using a kit mesh, you will have more bleeding because you're entering blindly into this area. You're putting your trocars, your whatever instruments, you have more risk of bleeding for the anterior. Apical support effects, it's a total nonsense not to use something that is going to stay permanently in this patient. That's the most difficult portion, is the portion of the body that holds everything else into the patient's vagina. So you need to have a permanent, good support. And this is shown in different studies. The Cochrane review addresses very nicely this type of things. So if you can do this abdominally or vaginally. But if you're doing abdominally, you have a lower recurrence rate of wall prolapse. There is nothing as good as the abdominal approach, abdominal fix of the valves of the vagina compared to the vaginal one. Somebody really likes this. You will have less dyspareunia. So if you are treating a younger patient, a patient in their 30s, 40s that are more sexually active than the patients in their 60s, discuss this with the patient. I can do a vaginal surgery, but you will have higher risk of having problems with your sex after my surgery. But you will need longer time to operate this patient. So if you have an old patient, an elderly patient that has other comorbidities, that you don't want to stay for several hours in a lithotomy position on the operating table, you should be offering a vaginal approach for this patient. They will have a longer time to recovery if they do abdominal procedure. You have to discuss this with the patient. If the patient is a top manager and she cannot afford to stay at home for a month after the surgery and wants to go to work a few days after the surgery, you shouldn't be offering them any abdominal approach because they do have pain after that. And it's more expensive. Vaginal surgery costs less than any abdominal approach. Why? Because we're using technology. Nobody wants to have a big scar on the belly and have an open procedure done, because you can do this laparoscopically, or you can do this robotically, if you have this option. So you have to understand and recognize the complication that you may raise. And you have to communicate this with the patients. You have to find the right solution for the right patient. Treating these problems is very different compared to treating these problems. The first one probably does not need anything. Or you can do physical therapy. For this one, you can probably just do colpoclasis, because this patient is in probably her late 80s or 90s, and do something to fix the rectal problems. You have to titrate your skills, your knowledge of pelvic surgery to patient's needs. Don't blindly apply the technique that you know to everybody, because you're gonna fail in your treatment. I already spoke about this OX, ACOG, AUA on what is the role of vaginal mesh in pelvic organ problems. Mesh is not that. Mesh is an excellent operation for specific patients with a specific problem. You have to recognize this. The overall rate of mesh erosion is very low, only 3%. And you have to know what type of, we already spoke about this, what type of mesh you should use, how should you do the dissection, which type of patient you should select. If the patient is a heavy smoker, has other problems with the healing that may jeopardize the healing process, you shouldn't be using this in the patient, like BPCO or other conditions. So you don't have to see just the prolapse, just a piece of the vagina that is staying out of the human body. You have to be a doctor. Listen to this patient. Do your job. Do a thorough and careful examination and taking of the medical history. How often do you ask the patient if they smoke? How often do you ask the patient if they have any other collagen pathology that requires constant use of steroids? Those are the patients where you shouldn't be using a mesh. But you have to know this. You have to know and be very, do your job as a physician. These are the erosion of grafts, and you have to know how to minimize this. Do a proper dissection of the vaginal wall. Do a proper closure of the vaginal wall. If everything stands there and you are trying to put all the sutures together because you resected excessive amount of vaginal wall, you're just going to call for problems. You're just asking to have problems in this type of patient. Again, full thickness, I emphasized this in my previous talk, is crucial. We have this, I can skip this portion. This is what you have to see. If you don't see this, you are not doing the full thickness dissection. You are implanting your mesh somewhere within the wall of the vagina. And if you see the mesh, or if the patient's partner comes complaining about itching in the penis because he is scrubbing the glands of his penis towards the mesh, it's not their fault, it's your fault, because you didn't do a proper job in the dissection. This is the true vesicovaginal space. Dimitri showed us perfect technique. You inject the fluid there. Once you cut, you see the fluids coming out. If you don't have this, you're not in the right spot. Prepare. Don't be afraid of getting into the right space and identify the right structure. The ischial spine, sacrospinous ligament, the arcus tendineus. And you can identify them if you know them. I'm a good seller for my anatomy talk. I should invite you back to give another talk on the anatomy, correct? It's good that you don't understand. Position the mesh properly. No tension, no wrinkling of the mesh. This has to be distended. If it's not distended, if your positioning is not accurate, you will just have complications. Seroma, this mesh, the fibroblast will not permeate the mesh. You have all sorts of problems. This is a very delicate surgery. This surgery needs details, attention to details. And you can see this in a very good technique that is reproduced by other surgeons or by the same surgeon. If every surgery they are doing looks different, you're doing something wrong. Closure as important as the opening. One of my senior residents explained to a junior resident just started the service. They rotate every 6 months, the changing patient in our service, and they say, look what he is doing. He is opening the patient, thinking how it's going to close. How often are we doing this when we're doing vaginal surgery? This should be your mantra whenever you're doing the reconstructive or functional surgery. This is another paper, reasons for and against use of non-resorbable synthetic mesh. And here there is this is the latest Cochrane in 2016. Higher objective cure rates with mesh, 20% versus almost 40%. Better product symptoms at 2 years if you use mesh versus non-mesh. And look at the reoperation, mesh versus not mesh. I think that those are all elements that are telling us that mesh is everything but that in pelvic medicine. But you have some problems. You have exposure rate. This exposure rate can be even higher after time. You may have some other problems, but you may have this also without a mesh, like de novo stress urinary incontinence or urgency incontinence. It all depends on how careful are you in adapting the techniques and the proper surgery in these patients. Bladder perforation, 3.7% if you're using a mesh versus 0.5% if you're not using the mesh. Because why is this? Because at the beginning, I was astonished when they start using a mesh in the US. They will come with a rep, will come to your office. Doctor, this is your CD. Look the CD, and you can do the surgery. This is not how you should be trained in doing this type of surgery. This is a very difficult operation to offer to your patients, full of details that you have to adapt rigorously when you're doing the procedure. We can skip this, and this is the conclusion. We should consider mesh in high risk factor of recurrence. And this is in between the lines stating you what is this high risk. If you have a grade 4, if you have an apical product, or if you have a previous product, those are patients that you should be using a mesh right away. Those are the patients where you should not be using a mesh. If the patient has a poor quality of the vagina, if the patient has previous radiation, if the patient is a heavy smoker, is using steroids, or have an uncontrolled diabetes, those are patients we are just calling for troubles if you decide to offer a mesh in these patients. So do your homework, start before doing this type of surgery. Do your job when you are identifying the proper patient. Discuss these details with the patient, and don't be afraid of complications, just manage them. Thank you.